Hello, everyone, those Raymond fans. Welcome to Sunday. I'm hoping you can hear me okay. Hello, Karen. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the episode where I talk about Christmas episodes. Hello, Noah. Yes, Merry Christmas. Hello, everybody. Hello, Leo in Toronto. How am I sounding, Leo? Can you hear me okay? Hello, Gil. I'm hoping I make it over to the UK. Loud and clear. So, I'm very happy to be able to share a lot of stories. Hello, Mary. You are in Australia, therefore it is morning there. Hello, Teresa. What kind of cookies are you making, Teresa, for the holiday season? Hello, New Hampshire. Lindum, New Hampshire. Hello, Florida. Yes, good to see everybody here joining. So I'm going to I posted a picture in the past, and I posted, if you go on Facebook, the ELR 360 on Facebook, you can see the inside of Doris Robert's Hollywood Hills home, where apparently at one time James Dean lived in that house before Doris lived there. Hello, Pam. Hello, everybody. So every, and I think, I don't know if Paula is with us today. It's a very, today, the Sunday before Christmas, is, hello, Jen, rewatching all the episodes for the 10th time, LOL. So it's a busy time for most people, and the next Sunday, I'll do a longer session than today. But let's talk about Doris Roberts' Christmas party. So when the show began, I've mentioned this, when the ball episode happened, the beginning of the series, the future of the series was very much in question. So we were on Friday nights at 8:30 on CBS. They hadn't had a hit there since the 60s, since Gomer Pyle. There was a lot of competition. Oh, that's great. Saved joyfully. Doris wrote in her autobiography about how much she enjoyed throwing those parties. That's great. I don't know if her family still owns that house. She has a son who is also her manager, but as far as I know, they don't own that house, but I could be wrong. You could probably look it up. So going back, the beginning of the series, the future was in question. So once season 2, season 3 came around, the future looked good. So Doris started having these parties. Now, I assume that she has been having those parties with her friends prior. And as you can imagine, Doris Roberts had a lot of friends. So I will try and see if anybody can remember the first time she had the party, but she would have the party for the cast. So the entire cast came, Peter Boyle, Patty Heaton, everybody, and their spouses, although Peter's wife, Lorraine, was in New York, so I don't think she ever made one of those parties. All of the writers came with their significant other, and then a couple of the producers, Lisa Jackson, who's been on here, Lisa Helfrich Jackson, who's been on here many times. So we would go into her house, and the Hollywood Hills is it's a very tight place. The streets are very tight, etc. So you would pull up to her house, which is kind of on a corner in the hills, and then you would go inside, and you would go into Doris's bar for a drink. Now, you would walk in the house and go down the stairs, and Doris Roberts had the most magnificent bar because eventually it filled up with a lot of Emmys because she kept winning Emmys, but she had a lot of playbills from Those are what you would get for Broadway plays. She had a lot of clippings, and it was very dark wood, and it felt as cozy as you can for a bar, especially in somebody's house. So somewhere I have photos. I have to dig them up, but I know I have photos of Phil and some of the guest stars in that photo. If you look closely in that photo, you can see Katherine Hellman is there, sitting next to her husband. Yes, Doris Roberts, I'm watching these comments. Yes, Doris Roberts had an autobiography, Are You Hungry, Dear? Life, Laughs, and Lasagna. And I remember I took the cover photo for Brad's book, and I had a lot of photos, obviously, of Doris, but she had this one photo that she wanted that ended up being on the cover, and she was just telling me that she fought for it to be the cover photo. And if you're in the publishing business in the last 10, 15, 20 years, they weren't rolling in the dough. And so they're notoriously frugal. Doris fought for that, and they wanted the photographer, I don't know who the photographer was, wanted a lot of money. And so Doris did win out, and they used that photo. I know that when I took Brad Garrett's cover photo for his book, it was the same type of negotiation of they do not want to pay a lot. So in Doris Roberts' party, we would eat, we would drink in her little bar, and you could barely fit. I think I have a picture of Phil squeezed in there with Brad, and I will dig those up, and I will post those later during the week, and you will see the room. You will see that bar. That now also in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, in that period, there was no such thing as an iPhone, and film you would have to shoot with a flash for the most part in a dark setting. So I think I have one of the first digital cameras and took some pictures in there. So nowadays everybody would have a iPhone or Android that can take picture in low light, but in those days you didn't. But I know I have some of those photos. So we would drink and we would talk, and it was good to hang out with everybody and not have the pressure of doing a show. And so then we would have what she called the greed party. And now I know on here a lot of people have talked about they call it something else, but the idea is you each get a number. You show up at the party with a gift, not an expensive gift, and whoever has the later number can either take from the pile of gifts in the center of the room, or if they like someone else's gift, they can go over to that person, take that person's gift away from them, and then that person who has just had their beloved gift stolen can go into the pile or take another person's gift. And the party, as you can imagine, with drinking and a lot of comedy writers, was always very, very funny and very intense because the gifts, I don't know what the cutoff was, maybe $25, maybe $40. You know, the deliberate thing was don't buy an expensive gift. And the amount of trading and arguing that happened in that room was astonishing as people fought for a toaster or something like that. And the evening would fly because very seldom when you're in the season, in the midst of the season, there's so much work, and people like Patty had 4 kids, Ray had 4 kids, Brad later on had 2 kids. So a lot of these people are tired and they have to do the production. So this, we knew we had a 2-week or so, maybe even 3-week break at this point, because I think her party might have been right after we wrapped or right before we wrapped, before the end of the season. Now, some of the writers like Ray, Tucker, and I remember we wrote, I think it was Ray Home Alone over the Christmas holiday. So I remember being in Warner Brothers in our production office with Tucker and Ray, the day after Christmas. And there's no fun being in a giant movie lot with nobody on it the day after Christmas. And she would do it every year, the Doris party. I'll find out when we started. I have pictures from every year. I think the ones I posted are from season 6, and I'm sure there's many that I haven't scanned yet that are in my in my files. But it really, really was a great time. And I think if you've been watching this, you know what a great family feeling that was on the show. And that family feeling that comes across in the episodes is really helpful. So the bonding behind the scenes really helped. Who did Doris have as neighbors? I don't know. I'll have to ask. I'll have her son. Her son's name is Michael Kanata. I'll have him on here if he's on Instagram, which I don't know that he is. That was Doris's first husband's last name. Who was invited? Yes, Leo, past actors. The thing about who she invited to that Christmas party, it's still a house, and you still only have so much room. So she was limited by how many people she could fit in this circle. Now, I'm going to post some pictures, and you will see that people like the parents of Madeline Sweeten, they're kind of pushed, just by random. They're up in a hallway almost in her living room. Now, she has by any measure, a very large living room. But eventually it filled up because once you have 6, 7, 8, 9, let's say 9 writers, then double that you're already at 18 people with just the writers, then Patty and her husband Dave, Ray and Anna, etc. So I'm sure she would have invited more people, but eventually she has to cut it off. Much like a wedding where you can only invite so many people. Does Ray drink in real life? No. Ray does not drink in real life, not because he had a drinking problem. He just doesn't drink. He just doesn't like to drink. And actually, I think, does he play drunk? You fans would know. At the end of an episode, it might be the bachelor party or something, where Ray plays drunk in this one. So, but Ray did drink when he was a teenager. Has anyone carried on with that party idea? I don't know. Well, I know because of COVID, it's not a problem. I mean, it's not a thing now. But as far as, Peter moved back to New York, where his apartment was. So he never really moved to LA per se, even though he had an apartment. Am I allowed to share any gossip, Karen? What does that, am I permitted? Will the agents of the people come back and hit me with a lawsuit? So am I allowed to talk about anything? Yeah, I think there's nothing really deep and hidden. Although if you go on to some of the sites, it'll say, the deep secrets of Everybody Loves Raymond. And I read them and go, okay, I don't know that that's a secret, but that's what's known as clickbait, where they're trying to do it. Jazz Records was on Channel 4. Now, are you guys in the UK? I read mixed reports that they're no longer showing it in the UK, but now is it back again? Give me a couple of hearts or thumbs up if it's back again. Yes, Karen, you're asking the same question. So Jazz Records, Sunday morning, only a couple of episodes. Okay, great. Thank you. I don't think Madeline Sweeten is related to Jodie Sweeten. Hello, Barbara. Hello, how are you? No, they're not different. Yes. Yes, the bachelor party, they all come home drunk, okay? And the bachelor party, I think I wrote that with Mike Royce, maybe, and Ray. I don't remember. So, yeah. But Ray has been drunk when he was a young teenager. The bachelor party, yes. Peter always said he hated California in ELR. Always said he hated. Yeah. Well, Peter, I'm going to post a picture. Peter, had 2 young daughters and his wife in New York, and so he commuted. And he also was doing movies at the same time, etc. So at the beginning, the first season, he lived in an apartment complex where Ray and I lived called the Hillcrest Apartments over by 20th Century Fox. And so we went to dinner a lot and hung out a lot. But I think it can be very lonely when you're on the road, especially, when your family is in another part of the country. So the jazz records, Frank buying a buggy whip and wooden, the buggy whip and the wooden teeth. I don't remember. So here, I will tell you this. The dynamic on Everett's Raymond, at least, was you generally didn't take credit for lines that you wrote, even if it got a big laugh. It was very uncouth, and no one would do it. And I think Ray and Phil set that tone, which is if a line got a big laugh, you wouldn't go, I wrote that line. So you can assume that for the most part, lines in most episodes that are written by are written by them, the person on the script. But a lot of times you would pitch other jokes that would get into the script. So I don't remember, but I'll look it up. I mean, there's a couple. I will. This is a line that I remember coming up with. It was a Steve Scrovan script, and I'll have to look at the first draft. I'll have to ask Steve Scrovan. I think Steve Scrovan we're going to have on a old landline, and I'm going to talk to him like this because he is not on Instagram, and he wrote a lot of great episodes, including All I Want for Christmas. But a lot of times it's very easy to have a script that's already finished and look at it and come up with one or two funny lines. The daunting part is when you have 40 empty pages to fill, and it's a daunting task. And so we had the luxury, and when it was your turn, you had to write your script, and then you would hand it over. And so a lot of the writers would come up with funnier jokes that were in the script. I remember Mike Scully wrote the line about pull off my clunky corrective shoes, which I thought was great. And I was in the production office, and he came in one morning. He goes, "Hey, Tom, I have this line." I was like, "Oh, that's great. That is a great line." But All I Want for Christmas, when Ray takes the wreath and covers himself with it. So I can't remember what originally was there, but I said, "Oh, we usually hang ours on the door," was a line that I came up with, which is a very funny line, but it's again, I just broke the. You generally, in general, don't trade credit for lines, and we generally can't remember the lines that we said. Everybody can hear me, okay? I'm here. Am I frozen? Are you sure a lot of stories you talked about? Yes. Great. So, Leo, did any stories come from Doris's party? I don't know specifically. So, I think because I'm gonna tell you about the jazz records, but I think in general, I've said when bad things happen to us, that is when the show became funny. So when we had real life experiences that didn't go well, and you did that by living your life, because as we all know, life is very hard, and really bad things happen to everybody, even though from the outside you may think, oh, that person's life is great. So did anything, I don't remember, is the short of it. But by going to that party, and I'm sure, as I will segue here into the jazz records, something bad that happens, you will wind up in an episode. But I'll ask Phil or any of the writers if they remember. Hello, Karen. What was your preferred drink at Doris's party? Did she have cocktails? Yes, I don't. Did she have a bartender? I think she did. Yes, the Hawk. So, she drank wine. That was her preferred drink. I don't even remember. This is before the bourbon. For those of you that are not in the U.S., there is a bourbon explosion here, and also Irish whiskey exploded as well, because way back in the 80s, vodka was the king of all spirits. So, what did Doris have at her party? Pretty much a full bar, and I don't know if she made a punch or not. These are really good questions. Okay, Windlepoons. Hello, Windlepoons. I need to double check, but sure on I'm today's credits, someone was called the Hawk. Okay. Steve Meyer is someone who worked on the show as a writer's assistant. He is on Instagram. I'll see if he can join us. His nickname was the Hawk. And I think he wrote 1 or 2 episodes. I can't remember. Great guy, writer's assistant. He came in a little bit later. Yes. Hello, Abby. So just for a lot of people who have never joined before, this is Tom Caltabiano. I am sitting here in Hollywood talking to you about my 9 years of being a writer on Everett Brothers Raymond. I met Ray doing stand-up in New York before Everett Brothers Raymond. I was on the show from the beginning to the end, and I still see Ray all the time and Phil all the time, etc. So yes, Abby, you have a question. Were Frank and Marie based off Ray's real-life parents? Yes, but I would say Marie was more leaning towards Phil's mother in certain ways. And the Fruit of the Month Club, which was in the pilot, which was a pivotal scene that I think one of the things that helped the show get picked up, was based on a real-life incident where Phil gave his parents the Fruit of the Month Club. So even though everything is based, and if you go back, you can see Ray's wife was on here and talking about things that Ray's father did that she did not find so funny, like changing their outgoing message on their answering machine. That was very much based, Peter, Frank's character, was very much based on Ray's father. But as the series went on, people incorporated different aspects of the writer's real-life stories, etc. So, which brings me to Jazz Records. Jazz Records was, and this will tell you kind of how the show works. Jazz Records is something that happened to me. If you guys look up, there's a very famous jazz photographer named Herman Leonard. Herman Leonard photographed some of the biggest stars in jazz history. And he went to college at Ohio University, not Ohio State University, but Ohio University. And he went into the Army. He wanted to be a photographer, but they didn't, he guessed something wrong in the chemicals or didn't get it wrong in one of these tests. They made him a medic, but he still photographed during the war. And then he came out of the war, and he would photograph using a bunch of flashes. And one time his flashes misfired, and he created this very specific effect, which if you look up Herman Leonard, you'll see these very contrasty photographs with Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald, and there's one with Dexter Gordon where there's smoke coming up. So many jazz album covers, etc., are in his repertoire. So he, in the 50s, lived in New York, and he went to all the jazz clubs where Miles Davis and all the famous jazz artists were, and he said to the jazz club owners, I'll take pictures, I'll give them to you if you just let me take pictures here. So he did that. And then a guy came in and said, hey, I want you to travel with me into the Far East. That guy was Marlon Brando. And the way that he met Marlon Brando is taking a headshot of Marlon Brando's girlfriend at the time. So there is a documentary about Herman Leonard, narrated by Tony Bennett. And I saw that documentary. I was like, what an amazing photographer. And if you have the Everybody Loves Raymond, Our Family album book, it's based on a Herman Leonard book that I saw. Okay. So I was in New Jersey at some point right after I saw this documentary. I was talking to my uncle, and I said to my uncle, I just saw this amazing documentary with Herman Leonard. And my uncle said, I know Herman Leonard. I went to college with him. And I couldn't believe it because he had never mentioned this to me before. And I said, well, when's the last time you talked to him? Like, I'd love to meet him. He said, oh, he moved to New Orleans. I talked to him like once a year. I end up flying to New Orleans, meeting with Herman Leonard, with my father and my uncle, who I was very close to. And we had a dinner. This is during Everett Brothers Raymond. And Herman Leonard was telling amazing stories about watching Miles Davis and Charlie Parker and being invited to all of these things. And it was 2 hours of the most amazing stories that I'd ever heard about jazz. Now, my father was obsessed with jazz and had been a volunteer at a jazz radio station. If you look it up, it's called WBGO in Newark. And he one time invited me to a record fair before I was Raymond. And when I showed up to help him, he said to his friend, he goes, "This is my son. When he was young, he ruined all of my jazz records." Now, I didn't remember ever ruining it, and I didn't even think twice. I thought, I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay. Cut to, we're with Herman Leonard. It's during Everett Raymond's time. It must be 2000, and it must be season 6 maybe. And we've had this amazing dinner with Herman Leonard, and he gives us a ride home. And when he gives us a ride to the hotel, and he says goodbye, and he's very nice, complimentary about me looking him up and just trading stories. And my father complimented, Herman complimented. He said, "Oh, I really love your son here." And my father says, without missing a beat, "Yes, it's too bad he ruined all of my jazz records when he was a kid." So I was like, why would my father choose to say, of all the things he could say to this great jazz photographer, he brings this up again. This is now 8 years later. So I go into the writer's room, and what happened, and this was really the genius of Phil and what he had set up, was tell your life story. Let's do specific stories to really touch people. Because when you try and do generalities, it just feels like that. So Phil goes, "Oh, that's, I tell the story." Now, we're in June, and Phil goes, "That's a great story. That's a great story. Put it on the board, jazz records." And Phil, so now this is in June, Phil said, how do we make that story? Now, there's 20 other stories on the board, and the season's going. And Phil thought this could be the Christmas episode. And the twist, because I don't have a brother, and the truth was, I still don't know the truth. Like, maybe we colored on a record or something like that. So there's no specific incident where my mother could say, "Oh, yes, you took all of his records and put them into a pool or something." And so Phil said, well, what if we have Robert, as the brother? Because Phil does have, if you've watched the great show that Phil has on Netflix called Somebody Feed Phil, Phil has a brother, Richard. So Phil's like, what if his brother moved them? And I was like, oh, that seems brilliant. Let's do that. So that became the jazz record episode, the Christmas episode. And I will put on, I will post a lot more pictures from the beginning of the table read, because I'm sitting at the table, and you'll see when you're performing, when the cast is performing for the beginning of the week, which is called the table read, you'll see the number of people, which is just a handful that they're doing. And just going back to specifics, I'll post a picture with me and Peter holding that record. Now, my father loved Ben Webster, and Peter loved jazz as well. And he had told me, and I recounted this during his birthday thing, that the Only the Lonely album by Frank Sinatra got Peter through a tough period when the album came out in the 50s. And Peter loved jazz. So we were going to, doing this episode was just fun because you like the subject matter. Now, when it aired, I thought, oh, my father's going to see this and he's going to say something. And all he said when he saw it was, "It's about time you got some jazz on that show." Now, it was good to get jazz probably on the show. More people heard that song, Bye Bye Blackbird, with Oscar Peterson and Ben Webster, than probably in the history of that song in totality. So if 20 million people saw it that night, it's a lot more than jazz sales. As you know, if you're a jazz artist, it was tough to make a living. Two Daughters Palm Court Dances in New Orleans. Yes. Sorry, I read that quickly, Donnell. My favorite photo from Herman Leonard are the two daughters at the Palm Court Dancers in New Orleans. Yes. My dad has all of the jazz records mentioned in the episode. Did I like Stan Getz? Yes, love Stan Getz. I'm reading through here these questions. For those longing to binge all the Christmas ELR, there are the 11th or 12th episode each season, except Jazz Records, which is the 10th season. Great. So that is one of the things also. The Christmas spirit, the feeling of giving and et cetera, not getting into religions, et cetera, but just the festive time is such a great thing to experience, especially if you're in New York in December, et cetera. So what was interesting for us is because we had to film ahead of time, we were all of a sudden having a full Christmas on the set with gifts, all the packaging, all the Christmas trees. And I think it was the last week of November or maybe even before Thanksgiving. So you got into that festive feeling way before Christmas, which was great, which was really great. Why is my profile picture of Deborah? Yes, it is not a profile picture for me because it is Everyone's Raymond 360. That is why it's a good picture of, I think, that was Patty walking by after curtain call, if that's the... I see it. Yes, my profile picture is a picture of me on my thing. According to Google, Doris' house was named Casa de Claude and was built by Hal B. Wallace. Oh, famous film producer. Yeah, I think Hal Wallace produced Casablanca. So that would be great if that is true. Why did we only make one Halloween episode knowing how popular Halloween was? That's a good question. It literally was a matter of just a story idea. So Phil, I think one year we didn't do a Christmas episode for some reason, and I don't remember why that was. And so I don't think if somebody had a great episode for Halloween, it would have gone. Now, the Halloween Candy, written by Steve Scrovan, that wasn't an idea that he had the year before, and it was too risky, and I think the second year was too risky, and then the third year they did it because the show was a hit. So the CEO, the president of CBS said, yeah, do whatever you want at this point. And so that's the only reason why. There just wasn't a good story, and they didn't it didn't come around. Can you post your pictures from Doris's Christmas party? Yes, I will post them afterwards. Yes, in your name's collection. Yeah. So, and Doris, I don't know if we had a Christmas party with Doris. Now, someone had mentioned, did we have a big Christmas party at Raymond? And we didn't. That the Doris party was kind of it. But also, people were ready to. Like I said, we shot until, and I think Ray's birthday is December 21st, and we always celebrated Ray's birthday, but I think we stopped shooting, maybe it depended, at least 6, 7, 8 days before Christmas. So I think people were very busy and competing with other Christmas parties. So, but the gifts, that is the production company would give gifts every year, and they, as the show got more successful, they got more and bigger and bigger. And so I think culminating in, I think everybody got a laptop computer, which you might say, well, that's just to get you to write more. But did any of you, this is a good question, Leo, comment. Did any of the writers forget what a story was about when posted on the storyboard? So in our Everett Raymond writer's room, there's a dry erase board. And Steve Scrovan, who had great handwriting, he was the keeper of that board. So every time we wrote an episode, he would put that so we could keep track. Yes, 100% we would sit there and go, what was that about? What was thank you? Well, there's thank you notes, no thanks. So yes, Leo, very, very often we could not, as you've seen by how many writers are on here who don't know what they're what the episodes are about, and that they've written them, including me. Let's see. Frasier has cell phone before, so a laptop once or twice before they're popular. Did Phil or you guys think about how much technology to have? No, that's a great question. But first of all, comedically, the moment the cell phone and texting happened, we say this now, a lot of miscommunication that helps for comedy goes away because you just text, like, why didn't you just text me? Why didn't you just, because not being able to get somebody on the phone, if you're old enough, you remember that's a thing. I couldn't reach them on the phone. And now it's almost impossible to not get a message to somebody. So there was not, it's a very good question, but the show ended in 2005. If you go back and watch Ray doing his first Tonight Show appearance, I think in 91, November of 91, he has a cell phone joke. And so that's 1991. So the cell phone did exist, but most people didn't have them. And I remember even at the beginning of Eros Raymond, Ray and I would be driving, and Ray had a cell phone, which seemed like a luxury. I mean, he was the star of a show, but it definitely wasn't a given that everybody had a cell phone. Is it difficult to write? Hello, Bobby. Is it difficult to write a holiday episode compared to a regular episode? Not really, I would say. Same amount of difficulty. Thank you so much for the page. Yes, you are welcome. Raced Dudette. Or is it Race Dudette? Or is it Raced Udette? I think the last one is probably wrong. All right, let me scroll through these questions before we wrap it up. I love that. Thank you, Mary Carpo, about Doris's house. It was a very cool house and a very much Hollywood looking house. So, by the way, for those of you in the UK, do you know Hot Wheels from the Jazz Record episode? It's a very specific American thing as far as we know, it was an orange track. It was really big in the 60s and 70s. I know they're still around, but I don't know if that would have landed when he gives that speech about that brotherless boy on the front. And by the way, a moment that makes me laugh out loud from the Jazz Records when I see it is Robert wanting to tell the story and can't get it out. And Amy goes, "Go, what is it, Robert? Go ahead." And he's like, "We're okay." And he does this mumble thing that is just hysterical. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but in real life, Ray was losing his voice when he starts screaming, "You moved my records." By the time we were done, his voice was pretty much gone. And so I don't know if it's apparent in the final cut. I can't remember. Great. Windlepoons, yes. Producer more than one episode. Any storyline that was created / happened to a writer producer happened to produce more than one episode. I mean, you could say Ray and Phil's life produced the entire series, but yeah, I don't know. Almost like a two-parter, right? I don't think so. I don't think so per se. Nothing's coming to my hand. Yes, Karen, I was I did not love. I was surrounded by jazz. So the question is, were you as big a fan as your dad? Not really growing up, but then eventually I started. Jazz is a very specific animal, and I think there's a lot of stuff that's unlistenable, and then a lot of stuff that's unbelievably good. So you can't just say, "Hey, listen to jazz," because depending who is being played at the time, it's almost like saying, "Hey, listen to music." And then that music is such a wide breadth of different styles. So I know I'm saying kind of the obvious, but I have had, when I play jazz and you listen to the people we were talking about, Stan Getz and Ben Webster, this is all very melodic stuff, and you get into atonal stuff with John Coltrane later on, etc. I don't want to get too deep into it, but yes, I'm a huge fan. I always laugh during the episode with the cocktail party trying to fix Peter up. Peter requests a fancy drink, and Robert tells him he'll have a beer. Yes, that's funny. And Chris Elliott, by the way, was phenomenally funny on the show, and I wish we could have used him more. I mean, we used him a lot compared to there just wasn't a lot of outside cast on the show. Has Patricia Heaton been here? Not yet. I saw her for a screening, and I told her, like, I want her to come on with her husband, who played the dreaded Parker, on the show. Yes, maybe. Did you laugh out loud at the show if you watch it now? Yes. Oh, I kind of answered that. Yes, Daniela. A beautiful name. Do you laugh out loud at the show if you watch? Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking to Ray the other day. Because we forgot so much, you really can laugh at it for the first time like you've never seen it before. So, by the way, what are your favorite Christmas episodes? Somebody's asking here. So I'm asking you guys, what is your favorite Christmas episode? Write them down and I'll respond. And don't forget, tell all of your friends that that I am on Facebook as well. I know a lot of people aren't on Instagram. Especially people who are a little bit. Hello, Belgium. I am a great fan. Everybody loves raised in 1997. I'm 31 years old. I look at it again. Raymond and Frank are your favorite. In Belgium, what language are you watching it in? In what language are you watching it in Belgium? Is it Flemish? Is it French? Is it German? Is it English with subtitles? The Christmas picture, the family photo is a favorite. Okay. The thought that counts. Yeah, there's no bad ones. I had Lou Schneider. By the way, if you look at that Doris Roberts photo and you've watched my lives in the past, a lot of the people that we've talked to here, you can pick them out. Mike Royce and Lou Schneider, etc. Turkey or fish is the Thanksgiving one, right? In Christmas boxing shorts. Ray singing In the Ghetto in Christmas boxing shorts. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that is All I Want for Christmas, right? That's season 2. Can I tell who wrote an episode by the style of the writing? Not really once it goes through the writer's room. You can tell when you read the first draft, but it gets tweaked and morphed in the writer's room by Phil and Ray. So you love the scene where Ray is Santa and talking to Allie in her bedroom, and she tells him she'll see him next year. So sweet. Yes, a great balance of sweet and comedy. All right, next, I'm going to show the day after Christmas. I will show some episodes, some Polaroids from the ball episodes and other Christmas episodes. Let's see, any final questions? And let's see, the scene, yes, great. Thank you. Jazz all the time, yes, thank. These are great. So I will post. Do I miss those Christmas parties? Yes, the Doris Christmas parties were fantastic. All of the socializing we did together was fantastic. So I will post pictures of Doris's party, and I'll see if I can find those pictures, the elusive pictures of inside of her bar. All right, everybody, have a very good Christmas, and I will see you all next week. Thank you for all of your great questions, all of your great comments. We will see you next Sunday.